It started as one of those ordinary nights that feel like background noise. I was sitting in the dim light of my office, the only sound being the low hum of the HVAC unit and the occasional tap of keys as I wrapped up some final notes for a proposal I had due the next morning. It was close to midnight. I'd lost track of time hours ago, not unusual, really. Haley had told me she was going to be at a personal development seminar all weekend in Santa Monica, so I figured it was as good a time as any to get ahead on work. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about her when I opened Instagram. It had been a while since I scrolled mindlessly, and I only did it because my niece tagged me in a hashtag throwback photo from last Thanksgiving. I clicked on her story, just to shoot her a quick heart reaction. She's always posting wholesome stuff. But then I saw something unexpected in the tiny row of circles at the top of her story feed. Haley's profile picture. That stopped me. Haley had made her Instagram private weeks ago. I remember because I noticed one day that her story icon no longer showed up at the top of my feed. When I asked about it, she'd shrugged it off with that casual air she uses when she wants me to drop something. It's mostly work-related content, she'd said. Stuff for my ments and followers. Nothing you'd be interested in. At the time, I chalked it up to her being on one of her branding kicks. She'd gone through a couple of those phases in the past. Digital detoxes, professional rebrands, content curation. I didn't push. I'd learned not to fight every little thing. But here she was, visible through my niece's account, which must have been accepted as a follower when Haley was still trying to build her presence. I tapped the circle, and just like that, I stepped into a world I wasn't supposed to see. The first clip was loud, messy, full of laughter and blinding lights. It looked like a typical club story. Bottles on the table, someone yelling cheers, ambient music that barely resembled the calm Haley claimed she was craving when she left home. But then came the second story. Haley, clear as day, sitting sideways on some guy's lap, one arm draped around his neck, the other holding a martini glass with a slice of lime on the rim. She was wearing a black dress I had never seen before. Strapless, form-fitting, something designed to draw eyes. Her hair was styled differently too, in loose, beachy waves that fell just below her shoulders. The kind of look you plan for. The kind of look you wear when you're hoping someone notices. She laughed, tossing her head back like she didn't have a care in the world. And that guy, whoever he was, leaned in, whispering something in her ear that made her bite her lip and swat him playfully on the chest. Her body language was unmistakable. She looked comfortable, like she belonged there, like I didn't exist. I watched the video again, and again, until the screen blurred and the music was just a distant hum in my ears. That man wasn't a stranger in her space. He was someone she knew. You could tell by how synchronized their body language was, how close their heads were, how her fingers curled around his shoulder like it was familiar territory. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen in stunned silence. At first, there wasn't rage or jealousy, just numbness. The kind of cold stillness that follows bad news. It was the same feeling I'd had years ago when I got a phone call about a friend dying in a car accident. The world doesn't stop, but something inside you does. You just sit there, suspended, waiting for your brain to catch up to reality. This wasn't some innocent clip of my wife hanging out with coworkers at a seminar mixer. This was deliberate. This was curated. She posted it, not someone else. It was her story. That meant she either didn't care who saw it, or she never expected me to. That thought stung more than I wanted to admit. I didn't want to start spiraling, but the questions came anyway. How long had this been going on? Who was the guy? Was this why she suddenly needed space in the evenings? Was this why she changed her phone password and started working out more? I took a deep breath, leaned forward, and opened the shared Dropbox folder where we kept all our important documents. Scrolled until I found the file labeled Prenup Final Signed. Opened it. Screensh asterisk Teddit. No caption. No emojis. No snide remarks. Just the image. Then I went back to Haley's story, tapped on the comments section, and posted the screensh asterisk T. Felt like the quietest loud thing I'd ever done. I didn't know if she'd even notice it right away. Maybe her DMs were full of heart eye emojis and fire symbols from her adoring followers. and my screech asterisk T would just be another notification in the mess. But I didn't care. I didn't post it for her. I posted it for me. A few minutes later, I texted her directly. Simple. Cold. Saw your stories. I'm done. Official notice is coming. Don't come home tonight. No question marks. No pleading. No begging for an explanation. She responded faster than I expected. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then came back again. Babe, it's not what you think. I swear. It was a networking event after the seminar. That guy? He's a colleague. A harmless one. This is part of my brand, Ryan. Don't blow this out of proportion. I stared at the screen, not even surprised. Of course she had an answer ready. Of course she'd twist it into something professional and innocent. She always had a way of shifting the focus, redirecting attention like a magician doing sleight of hand. I didn't reply. Then came a second message. You're being paranoid. You always overanalyze things. Maybe if you trusted me more, we wouldn't be here. There it was. The switch. From defense to offense. The blame flip. And in that moment, I knew there was nothing else to salvage. She could spin it any way she wanted, say I was insecure, say I was controlling, say I didn't support her career. But the facts were facts. I saw what I saw. She lied about where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. And worst of all, she looked happier there than she had looked at home in months. I shut off my phone, leaned back in my chair, and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The office was still dark. The HVAC still hummed. But everything had changed. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That would come later. For now, I was just done. The days after I saw those Instagram stories weren't loud. They were hollow. Quiet in a way that's almost worse than a fight. The kind of quiet where you notice every creak in the floorboards, every hum of the refrigerator, every notification you don't want to check. I didn't scream. I didn't flip a table or punch a wall. I just unraveled. Silently. Like a sweater with one thread pulled, coming apart with every passing moment. I kept replaying it all in my head. Not just the stories, but the months leading up to them. Suddenly, all the moments I had brushed aside, every weird little gut feeling, every dismissed red flag, came rushing back like they'd just been waiting for me to wake up. And once I did, they wouldn't shut up. There were so many signs. I just didn't know how to read them at the time. For example, I used to have this habit of texting Haley when I knew she'd be home late, a simple drive safe or want me to leave a light on. Sometimes she'd answer right away, other times not at all. I figured she was in meetings or tired or just decompressing. But now I remember how the tone of her replies started changing. They became stiff, curated, like she was copy-pasting a version of herself she thought I expected. Just wrapping things up. Don't wait up. Love you. Long night. A productive smiley face. See you tomorrow. There was always a smiley. Always punctuation. Always a little too clean. I should have known something was off when I started missing the messy version of her. We used to be real with each other. Haley once spilled coffee on a client's expensive white rug and texted me in a panic with nothing but, "I'm dying, send help." Now it was all surface. Polished. Like she wasn't talking to me anymore, just performing. Then there was the gym membership. She'd never been big on working out. Not because she was lazy, she just didn't care about fitness trends, never bought into the idea of summer-bodied nonsense. But suddenly, she was up at 5:30 every morning for hot yoga and sculpt classes at some new boutique studio that had opened downtown. I was proud of her at first. Told her she looked great. She did. Still does. But there was a difference. Her body wasn't the only thing changing, her attitude did too. She started comparing herself to people she'd never cared about before. Influencers. Fitness coaches. Models she once used to roll her eyes at now became inspiration. She started saying things like, "You wouldn't understand, Ryan, you're not in this space." Or, "You should try being more intentional with your look. It makes a difference." At first, I laughed it off. I didn't mind being the laid-back guy with a little stubble and a drawer full of soft t-shirts. I didn't need to match her energy to support her. But it started to feel like I was slowly becoming invisible in her world. And maybe that was the point. Then came the credit card alerts. We had joint accounts for most things. Not because we needed to, but because it made life easier. I never really checked her purchases unless I was doing our monthly budgeting. But one day, I saw a charge from a high-end spa, one I knew she used to say was absurdly overpriced. A couple days later, another charge came through for a designer boutique in Beverly Hills. She had never shopped there before. I remember making a dumb joke when I saw the total. "Getting fancy on me?" I texted. She replied, "A little self-investment never hurt anyone. Don't start counting receipts. The message stung more than I let on. And maybe that was the real shift, not just in her behavior, but in the way she talked to me. There used to be softness in her. Now everything had an edge. I'd say something small and she'd twist it into an accusation. I'd ask a question and she'd turn it into a lecture. It was like I was being punished for caring. She started saying things like, "You're always monitoring me. I can't breathe." Or worse, "You're starting to sound like my dad." That one hurt. The Macy went first. Not just physical, emotional. We used to spend weekends tangled in each other, not even doing anything important. We'd binge shows, argue over takeout, make dumb playlists, and pretend we were 22 again. But those weekends vanished. I started waking up to an empty bed and coming home to silence. She filled the spaces in between with plans. Friends I never met. Events I wasn't invited to. Projects that sounded like nonsense when I asked for details. I should have known. I remember the night she put a passcode on her laptop. That was never a thing before. We shared devices all the time, it was casual. But one evening I asked if I could use her computer to check an email while mine updated, and she paused. Not long. Just a second. But long enough. She said, "Yeah, just give me a minute," then took it upstairs. Came back 10 minutes later and handed it to me with a fresh desktop background and cleared tabs. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't want to make a scene. A few weeks later, she came home with a new phone. No warning. Just walked in holding a new iPhone with a smirk like it was a present to herself. When I asked about her old one, she said it had been glitchy and she'd traded it in. I didn't believe her. One time I walked into the kitchen and caught her mid-conversation on the phone, but the moment she saw me, she hung up. Not ended the call. Hung up. Abruptly. "Oh, that was just Kim. Talking nonsense," she said, dropping her phone face down. I nodded. We both knew it wasn't Kim. The thing is, people always think affairs happen in a single, dramatic moment. A kiss. A hotel room. A lie. But most of the time, they happen like erosion. Slow. Quiet. You don't notice the ground shifting under your feet until you're ankle-deep in the ocean, watching your home sink behind you. I used to think Haley and I had something rare, not perfect, but strong. We'd survived job changes, financial stress, family drama. I thought we had that unspoken connection, the kind that anchors you when life tries to rip you apart. But maybe I was the only one holding the rope. Or maybe she let go months before I even realized we were drifting. I can't pinpoint the exact day I lost her. That's what keeps me up at night. Was it the spa day? The first work trip she took alone? The night she turned away when I reached for her under the covers? Or was it even earlier when she started seeing herself as something she couldn't be while still being with me? I used to believe that if you love someone, you grow with them. I never imagined I'd have to watch the person I love grow away from me and worse, make me feel like I was holding her back just by existing. Looking back now, it's all so painfully obvious. Every breadcrumb, every excuse, every emotionally distant hug and phone turned face down. It wasn't about the seminar. It wasn't even about the man in the story. It was about how long she'd been building a life that didn't include me. And I didn't see it. Or maybe I did. And I just didn't want to believe it. I didn't plan on coming home early that day. It was supposed to be a 3-day business trip, a client pitch in Denver, some follow-up meetings, and a dinner with the regional team. But on the second day, the client postponed last minute. The team wrapped early. My hotel room felt like a waiting room for a life I no longer wanted to be in. I stared at the ceiling for maybe 2 hours before I packed my bag, checked out, and caught the last flight home. It was late when I landed, almost midnight. I didn't text Haley. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to surprise her, maybe I didn't want to hear another practiced excuse. Or maybe, deep down, I wanted to catch something I couldn't ignore. A part of me was still hoping I was wrong, that the stories, the distance, the silence, all of it was a misunderstanding wrapped in bad timing. But the rest of me already knew what I was walking into. When I pulled into our driveway, the first thing I noticed was the light in the upstairs bedroom. Our bedroom. It wasn't unusual, except I wasn't in it. And I hadn't been for a few nights. We'd been doing this Cold War shuffle for a while, sleeping in separate rooms, pretending it was about space or sleep cycles or stress. But the reality was simpler. The Macy had left before I did. Then I saw the car. It was parked across the street, not in our driveway, not directly in front of our house, but close enough. A black Lexus. Windows tinted, engine cold. I didn't recognize it, but something about the way it was just sitting there felt wrong. I stepped out of my car slowly, like I was trying not to wake a dream. Or a nightmare. The front door was unlocked. That should have been my first real confirmation. Haley never left it open. She was obsessive about security, double locks, alarms, even the motion sensor lights she made me install last fall. But tonight? Nothing. I stepped inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No TV. No music. Just the low hum of central air and the occasional creak of old wood. And then I heard it, voices. Muffled, upstairs. Not just one. Two. I froze. I wanted to move, but my body locked up. It was like the sound had triggered something primal in me, a warning, a siren. My heart thudded in my chest, each beat louder than the last. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and sharp. I took off my shoes and moved to the stairs, each step feeling heavier than it should have. I avoided the spots I knew creaked. Halfway up, I paused, holding the banister like it was the only thing tethering me to earth. That's when I heard her laugh. Haley. Not the forced laugh she used at meetings or on video calls, but the real one. The kind that used to bubble out of her when I said something stupid or when we were driving with the windows down singing off-key. Only now, it wasn't for me. It was for him. When I reached the top, the voices became clearer. Their rhythm. Their comfort. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't new. It was familiar. Practiced. Lived in. I didn't need to see anything else. But I did. I stood at the door of our bedroom. It was cracked open, just slightly. Enough. Haley was standing near the bed, barefoot, wearing one of the silk robes I gave her 2 Christmases ago. The man, the same one from the Instagram stories, was sitting on the edge of the mattress, his shirt unbuttoned, hands resting on his knees like he lived there. They hadn't noticed me yet. She leaned down, kissed him. Slow. Casual. Like it was Tuesday. That kiss was the death certificate of everything I'd been holding on to. I didn't say anything. I didn't crash through the door or demand an explanation. I didn't want the performance. I didn't want her tears or his defensive hand-waving. I didn't want a script. I backed away slowly, retraced my steps down the stairs, out the door, back into the car. I drove. I didn't even know where, just away. I ended up parked outside a grocery store that had closed an hour earlier. Sat in the lot with the engine running and the headlights off. I stared at the wheel, my fingers gripping the leather so hard my knuckles hurt. And then I cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet tears rolling down my cheeks like something broke and couldn't be put back together. I let myself feel it, all of it. The betrayal. The humiliation. The loss. The kind of grief that doesn't have a name because the person who hurt you is still alive and breathing just fine. That night, I didn't go back home. Instead, I checked into a hotel by the freeway. I paid in cash, didn't use my real name. I didn't want to explain anything to anyone. I just needed air. The next morning, before I even brushed my teeth, I called a locksmith. By noon, all the locks at the house had been changed. The alarm codes were reset. Her digital access was revoked, garage opener, thermostat app, even the stupid playlist we used to share. She texted once. Where are you? Can we talk? I didn't reply. I called my lawyer next. Told him I had evidence, I needed paperwork, and I wanted this over. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was done. By that evening, the emergency separation paperwork was filed. When I finally returned to the house, it felt different. Lighter, somehow. Even with her things still in the closets and her scent lingering in the sheets, it already felt like she didn't live there anymore. I started packing her belongings the next morning. Not out of spite. Just necessity. There was a box for her clothes, her shoes, her framed degrees. I found a drawer filled with cards I'd written her over the years. Birthdays. Anniversaries. Random Tuesdays. I didn't read them. I just put them in the box. But what really got me was the note taped behind our bathroom mirror, a sticky note with one word, breathe. I remember when she put it there. She said it was to help with her anxiety. A grounding technique. A little reminder to pause. I stood there for a long time staring at that note. Then I peeled it off and dropped it in the trash. That was the last piece of her I allowed to stay. That night, I slept in my bed. Alone. No sound but the ceiling fan. No ghosts. No games. No forced conversations. Just silence. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel empty. It felt like peace. I always thought that if my marriage ended, it would be in a courtroom with raised voices and tears. Instead, it began in silence, in the quiet shuffle of papers and the cold glow of a laptop screen. After filing for emergency separation, the next step was obvious: get everything in order. I didn't want drama. I wanted clarity. I wanted boundaries. I wanted my life back, and this time I was going to protect it with everything I had. The first thing I did was call Trevor, my lawyer. We'd used him once before for real estate stuff. He was calm, efficient, and not the type to coddle feelings. Just facts. I told him everything, starting from the night I saw the Instagram stories all the way to what I walked in on in our bedroom. I've got digital proof, I said. Screensh *TS, location data, receipts. And I saw it myself. There was a pause on the other end of the line. You sure you want to go this route? He asked, not out of doubt, but because once this path started, there wasn't any turning back. Yes, I said. I'm done being someone's safety net. We met in person 2 days later, and I handed him everything. A folder of Screensh *TS, timestamps from the night I flew home, photos of the unfamiliar car parked across from our house, and the old receipt from the luxury brunch spot that hadn't made sense until now. I also forwarded emails, vague exchanges she had carelessly left in our shared account. They weren't incriminating on their own, but in context, they painted a story. This is more than enough, Trevor said, flipping through the documents. You've got grounds for infidelity and misuse of marital assets. We can file for divorce with favorable terms, especially with the prenup. Ah, the prenup. It was something Haley and I signed when we first got married, mostly because I'd inherited some family property and she had student loans. It wasn't dramatic back then. Just precautionary. But now? It felt like a lifeline. According to it, in the event of infidelity, she forfeited any claim to my business assets or our joint investment account. She also agreed that if personal betrayal was proven, I retained sole ownership of the house. She'd once laughed about how unromantic the document was. I wasn't laughing now. Trevor got started immediately. He sent me a checklist: freeze joint accounts, secure important documents, protect digital property, redirect payroll from our shared account to a personal one. I followed every step like it was a battle plan. Within 48 hours, I had moved my salary to a private account and left only the legally required minimum in the joint one. I wasn't being petty. I was being cautious. If she drained it, I'd be liable. I also moved my business files off our shared cloud storage. Haley had access to it from her laptop, and though I doubted she cared about spreadsheets and forecasts, I wasn't about to underestimate her. Not anymore. By the end of the week, everything with my name on it was locked down. Then came the house. Our home was in both our names, but I had purchased it before we got married, and the prenup recognized that. I contacted a title attorney and began proceedings to transfer full rights back to me. With the divorce underway and evidence already submitted, the court would likely side with me, especially given the terms we'd both agreed to. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. Haley wasn't the type to go quietly. But I wasn't trying to hurt her. I wasn't trying to make her suffer. I just didn't want her hands on anything she'd already let go of emotionally months ago. She tried reaching out: texts, calls, voicemails. At first, they were defensive. This isn't fair, Ryan. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. You misunderstood everything. He was just a friend. You don't get to burn everything down over one night. But then they got desperate. Please don't do this. I'll go to counseling. We can fix this. I made a mistake. I know I did. But we're more than this, aren't we? I'm scared. I don't know where to go. Please call me. Each one made my chest tighten, not because I wanted her back, I didn't, but because I hated what we'd become. We used to build each other up. Now we were two people standing on opposite ends of a burning bridge, pretending we didn't see the flames. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because if I opened that door, even a crack, I knew she'd try to squeeze through it with charm and apologies and old memories. And I'd spent too long accepting breadcrumbs and calling it love. Instead, I packed a bag, turned off my phone, and drove to Arizona. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just picked a quiet mountain town I'd once visited on a hiking trip, found a furnished rental cabin through a short-term listing site, and set up shop. Remote work made it easy. I brought my laptop, a monitor, a few files I couldn't digitize, and that was it. The essentials. I worked from the dining table during the day and sat on the porch at night, watching the sky change colors. There was peace in the stillness. A clarity I hadn't felt in months. Out there, in the open air, I started to remember who I was before all of this, before the whispers of doubt, before the weight of pretending everything was fine. Before I let someone else redefine my worth. Trevor kept me updated by email. The paperwork was moving fast, thanks to the prenup. We'd requested a formal court date to finalize the divorce and submitted all evidence in advance. Haley had finally hired her own lawyer, and from what Trevor said, she wasn't fighting the terms, at least not yet. Maybe she realized how much worse it could get if she did. Or maybe, like me, she was just tired. I didn't ask where she went after I changed the locks. Part of me wonders if she stayed with him, the guy from the stories. Maybe he let her crash on his couch. Maybe he disappeared the moment things stopped being secret. I don't know. And I don't care. What mattered was this: I was no longer in the house where I had been lied to. No longer checking her location. No longer second-guessing if a compliment was just a setup for an argument. I was done living in limbo. I was reclaiming my life, piece by piece. Not out of revenge. Out of self-respect. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I didn't hear her voice again. Not directly. Not in real time. But I heard about her. The calls stopped after the second week in Arizona. Maybe she gave up. Maybe her lawyer told her to stop contacting me. Or maybe silence finally echoed louder than any excuse she could come up with. But that didn't mean the consequences stopped unfolding. Trevor called one morning just as I was making coffee on the porch. She's not contesting the terms, he said. I waited. But he continued, she's scrambling. Financially. Professionally. She's in trouble, Ryan. I didn't say anything. I just stirred a sugar packet into my mug and let the wind do most of the talking. According to Trevor, Haley's response to the fallout wasn't graceful. It wasn't composed or dignified. It was erratic. It started with the guy from the stories. Turns out he wasn't a colleague at all. He was someone she met at a networking after-party, a mutual friend of someone on her digital marketing team. A trust fund type. Smooth talker. Owned a media startup that hadn't turned a profit in 3 years but loved being photographed at hotel rooftop lounges like he was a CEO. The moment things stopped being secret, he vanished. Blocked her, apparently. Deleted his socials. Left her holding the emotional grenade after she pulled the pin. Poetic, in a way. She tried to clean up the mess. Reframe it. Rebrand herself. She went back online, posting cryptic, self-pitying messages, half quotes about resilience and rebirth, half jabs about being abandoned and blindsided. I saw one of them because a friend sent it to me. It was a selfie she took in a hotel mirror wearing one of those oversized cardigans meant to look like vulnerability. The caption read, "Some people only show up for your best days. Remember who stays during your worst." The comments were split. A few said, "Stay strong, queen." But others weren't so forgiving. One of my old college buddies, who had zero chill, commented, "You were sitting on another dude's lap while still married. That your worst." It got liked by over 100 people. The post came down shortly after. From there, things spiraled. She lost her job within 3 weeks. Not because of me, I hadn't spoken to anyone in her company. But someone had forwarded the **TS from her story along with a link to the prenup post and a thread from Reddit that had picked it up and gone semi-viral. Her company had strict internal policies about professional conduct, especially for client-facing staff. She violated all of them, especially the one about publicly misrepresenting company events. They called it a discretionary termination, but we both knew what that meant. She tried to apply for new jobs. I know this because her sister told someone who told someone who told me. But the story followed her. **TS lived forever, and the internet had a long memory. Every interview started with polite enthusiasm and ended in silence. Her fallback plan had always been her family, especially her mom. But that bridge burned fast. Apparently, her mom had seen the stories too. Saw the guy. The robe. The drink in her hand. She wasn't impressed. "Your dad left us because of things like this," her mom reportedly said. "I didn't raise you to be reckless." Harsh, but not untrue. Haley showed up at her parents' house one weekend and was turned away. Her mother refused to open the door. Her stepfather didn't even come outside. She slept in her car that night, according to her cousin, who ended up Venmoing her gas money and blocking her the next day after she tried to use his credit to apply for a rental. Even her sister, her lifelong ally, cut ties. I heard she tried to co-sign a loan under her sister's name. Said it was temporary just to secure a deposit on a sublet. But when her sister checked her credit report, she saw multiple hard inquiries and a rejected credit card application she never submitted. That was it. Haley's last lifeline had snapped. The house legally was mine again. She asked through her lawyer if she could stay temporarily, said she had nowhere else to go, no income, and was waiting on an apartment application. I said no. Firmly. Respectfully. But no. She moved into a weekly motel outside the city, one of those places that looks better in online photos than it does in person. Yellow walls. A mini fridge that doesn't close properly. A front desk clerk who sleeps with one eye open. A friend of mine saw her there once. Said she looked thin. Tired. Smoked a cigarette on the curb like someone who'd just given up. I don't take pleasure in that. I don't wish her pain. But I also don't feel responsible for it. Because she had choices. She just made the wrong ones. Over and over. Meanwhile, my life was quieter. Cleaner. Not healed, not yet, but stable. I stayed in Arizona for another month. Worked from the cabin. Hiked most mornings. Learned how to make pour-over coffee with one of those ceramic drippers she used to roll her eyes at. Every so often I'd get a message from someone in our circle, someone who'd heard her side first, then mine, and felt the need to tell me they were sorry for assuming. I didn't respond. I wasn't collecting apologies. I was moving forward. The strangest part was how little I missed her. You'd think after years of being with someone, years of routines and shared holidays and inside jokes, there'd be a hole where she used to be. But there wasn't. Not really. She'd been gone long before she physically left. I just hadn't noticed. And now that the noise had died down, I could finally hear my own voice again. One night, I sat on the porch watching the sun bleed out behind the mountains, and I asked myself a question I hadn't dared ask in months. What do you want now? Not what was taken from me. Not what needed fixing. But what I actually wanted. And the answer was simple. Peace. Not comfort. Not control. Not justice. Just peace. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't want to win. I just wanted to stop bleeding in a fight that should have ended months ago. I think Haley thought I would chase her. That I'd come around. That I'd hear her apology and remember the good days and forget the rest. But I wasn't chasing anyone anymore. She had left her life. Her home. Her job. Her name even. She wasn't the woman I married. And I wasn't the man who would let her come back. Haley tried to control the narrative. She posted cryptic captions, painted herself as the one abandoned. For a few hours, people sympathized. But then truth hit the comments. Someone uploaded a screen recording of her nightclub stories. Another posted our prenup **T. A former co-worker added context, revealing the truth behind her so-called networking. The tide turned fast. Sympathy became scorn. Her online presence collapsed. Job offers dried up. Reputation gone. Even friends she counted on distanced themselves. In court, the evidence sealed everything. I was granted full ownership of the house, compensation for legal costs, and emotional damages. Haley left the courtroom alone, shoulders slumped under the weight of consequences she never expected. 6 months later, I bought land in New Mexico. Built a woodworking studio. No distractions. Just peace. Celine, a local architecture professor, helped me design the space. She didn't ask about the past, and I didn't offer it. There was no pressure, just quiet understanding. One day, Haley mailed a letter. No return address. Just an apology, raw broken. She admitted she lost everything. I read it once, then placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Some things don't need closure. Sometimes silence is the answer. I wasn't bitter. I was just done being anyone's fallback. I had scars, yes, but also freedom. I was building something real, one board at a time. With steady hands. And with people who saw my worth without needing to be convinced.